Morning. Will they pick up over there? Morning. I think the biggest challenge really is you also have to manage the game as a head coach, right? So when you're not on offense, you gotta be on the defensive side, and you gotta be able to watch the game, and so that takes some time, some time to work through that. When you're strictly just a play caller, like an offensive coordinator, and you don't have other game day responsibilities, those are the things you have to overcome and really work into your schedule. They're getting a tremendous leader. They're getting a really good quarterback. They're getting a guy that is going to lead that football team. He's going to lead that locker room. He's going to do everything on and off the football field, to help that team win.
There are a lot of rumors about him in his days in Philly. You obviously know very well about the locker room, about his play. How much of that is either real versus just...
Well, I only know him from a couple years ago, and it's hard to speak, what he did last year in Indy and obviously what he can do in Washington. But, the guys respond to him. Even him embracing the young guys and really getting them kind of involved in the off season and how he approaches that, I think is what they're going to see in him. They're getting a guy that is going to come in there and work hard and try to turn things around.
Take your head after the injuries.
Maybe a little bit. It's hard. I haven't really watched him a lot this past year, but I think for any player, injuries over time is going to take a little toll. Yeah.
Doug, in your conversations with the Jaguars players so far, what's been your emphasis? What's been the tone?
Well, obviously right now it's just on the surface. We're not doing anything football, with them, and it's really kind of me getting to know them and them getting to know me, and I think that's the number one thing that with a new head coach, for them, just kind of gaining their trust, this offseason and trying to build that anytime I get a chance to run into the guys.
Impressions of them as you talk to them overall, just
I've been real impressed with them. And they just want to win. They just want to win. That's kind of been the general theme with all the guys, and it's really a good locker room. It's a young locker room, and we just got to get them to come together and find the leaders of the group and get them going.
Since 2017, aggressiveness in the NFL has steadily climbed.
What has?
Aggressiveness on fourth down
has
steadily climbed, and last year it was the most ever. And I think guys are converting like over 50% or like high, 58 or something. Do you feel like you played a small role in that based upon your success in 2017?
Well, I think if you go back to 17, and listen, I wasn't going into 17 trying to be a trendsetter. We're trying to do what we can to win football games, and anytime that we can maybe steal a possession on offense, we were going to try to do that back then. And I think because of that, I think you're seeing more and more teams around the league, the 4th and 1s and 4th and 2s, making those decisions to stay on the field. Now, they're being smart about it, field position, all of that. But I think they're understanding that they can have that extra possession, and hopefully that translates into points.
How much does the analytics play into it?
A little bit. You have to listen to the analytics. You have to listen to, what they say. But at the end of the day, it's about the players and our opponent. How is our opponent in those, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and 2s? How do they play defense? And so it boils down ultimately to the head coach making the decision, but analytics can play a small part in helping me in making a decision to go for it or not.
So we all know Jeffrey Lurie was a big proponent of analytics and stuff like that. How much did he factor into you you having these tools at your hand in terms of the analytics? He was always pushing for it. Yeah.
You know, obviously, as you guys know, he's very instrumental in that, and really gives you every resource possible to make good decisions. You know, and that was one of the things I really appreciated about him, because he knew where I was, I knew where he was, and he never questioned any of the fourth down decisions that we made, whether it was a 4th and 1 to a 4th and 5. You know, he understood, because he knew that the math might suggest, you know, going for it in those situations. So really good relationship that way.
Was it spent big on a linebacker this offseason? Has your approach changed to that position, or is it just different organizational philosophy?
Why do you say my approach has changed?
It's spent big in your 5 years of film.
Excuse me. You know, my first of all, we got a different defensive scheme. My approach or my philosophy hasn't wavered. You know, you're always looking to add talent, right? You're always looking to add value, and that's what part of free agency, you know, brings. We also know that the linebacker position is a key part of the defense. There's a lot of communication with the D-line, with the back end, and so you want those guys, you know, that can communicate well with that group. And you know, anytime you can get good players or re-sign your own players through free agency, like we did this year, just helps solidify the overall team.
You guys were so active in the first week of free agency. What are the specific things you've added that give you confidence about how big a step you can take this first year?
Well, number one, you know, we always look at our own roster first, and we try to re-sign as many of our guys as possible. That's just the nature of free agency. We're going to lose some. You know, and as we put our plan together, when I say we, you know, Trent Baalke, the pro personnel side, the coaching side, as we came together and put our plan together, you know, we targeted certain positions that we needed help, and we also targeted them based on we might lose a guy to free agency that we have to, you know, fulfill. And you know, we signed 7 guys, right? And 7 guys that can help us, you know, this year. I don't think you want to go into free agency signing 7 guys every year. I don't think that's the model. And now we have the draft coming up that we can also help, and you know, with 12 draft picks, bring in more of that talent, bring in more depth, bring in more competition is what you want. But the guys we signed are going to be impact players, you know, right away.
What went into that decision? What did the Lions get?
Well, I mean, you know, DJ is one of the guys we wanted back, you know, and I'm happy for DJ, obviously. He gets a chance to, you know, really, the last couple of years, you know, being sort of nicked up a little bit and injured, he gets a chance to go and compete and really help the Lions win. And you know, he was one of the guys. I know he has a good relationship with our quarterback. But again, the nature of the beast is you're going to lose some of these guys, and I just wish all those guys the best.
How do the moves that you've made so far, bringing Cam back, moves on the offensive line, how does that sort of factor into any decision making up top?
You know, the decisions to bring guys like Cam back are to protect your quarterback. You know, it has nothing to do with the draft, and we want those guys to be, you know, we want that offensive line to be solidified. We want guys up there that have been around. Cam is a big part of that, is going to be a big part of that, so we were excited to obviously retain him. But as it pertains to the draft, you know, that's kind of its own separate deal right now.
Is the line solidified enough that you feel you don't need, you know, I mean, a lot of talk has
Well,
been about...
I mean, we're not done. You know, obviously the draft is coming up, and I'm sure we're gonna add some more depth at that position. You can never have enough offensive linemen in the NFL.
Hiring Heath Farwell as your special teams coordinator.
What's that?
What went into hiring Heath Farwell as your special teams coordinator?
You know, I didn't have any history with Heath, but when I was looking for a special teams coordinator, I wanted somebody that's led those units, and they're top 10, top 5 special teams units every year that he's coached. You know, someone that has a very similar approach to the game that I have, and just a great relationship, and it worked out that I could get him.
Were you surprised he was available? Because they were pretty good in Buffalo on special teams.
They were really good on special teams, and it was a little bit of a surprise, but I'm happy to have him.
You had obviously had a lot of success in your second year being in Philadelphia. What do you think is necessary going forward, making a good jump like you did, going from year 1 to year 2?
Well, I think looking back from 16 to 17, one, the coaching staff stayed the same, keeping the same coaches. Even though guys had a chance to leave, I wanted to make sure I had the same guys around our players. Again, keeping our core guys intact. We had a young quarterback coming into his second year where we could grow even more with him and then start putting some pieces around him, to help him be successful. And then same thing on the defensive side of the ball. We had some veteran guys over there, some leaders over there. We brought guys like Chris Long in, and just guys like that could really add that leadership on defense and really kind of bring the whole team together. I think that's kind of what kind of catapulted us into 17, 18, with the kind of runs we had, back then.
You had Mike Caldwell as a teammate, as a fellow coach. Just want to ask you what he brings to your defense.
Yeah, Mike and I go way back, as players together. I've always had a lot of respect for him. We worked together on Coach Reed's staff, in Philadelphia. I also worked with Todd Bowles, and so when Todd left, he took Mike with him. And so I've always followed Todd and Mike, kind of their defenses, whether in New York and Arizona, Tampa Bay, and always felt like Mike would make a really good defensive coordinator one day. Just given an opportunity, and that's kind of like when I was a coordinator. Somebody had to give me an opportunity, right? And he and I got to have a great relationship. And I'm excited to watch him work, call defenses, and go to work this year.
This scheme, Doug, is it 3-4 hybrid defensive scheme?
I mean, we're gonna base it out of a 3-4, but it's so multiple in nature. The base will be 3-4, but teams, offenses are playing so much 11 personnel that you're going to be in four down line, a 4-2 configuration a lot. So it'll be multiple in nature that way.
And some of these top flight pass rushers in this draft, can they be multiple and flexible and versatile?
They can be, and that's kind of what you want. When you look at pass rushers, they can put their hand in the ground. They can stand up in a two-point stance. They can slide down to a 3 technique, a 5 technique, and they're multiple in nature. And it's kind of like offensive linemen. You want a tackle that can maybe play guard, or a guard that can move in and play center. So you have that position flexibility, because you're going to need those guys to maybe play a different position as the season goes, as injuries begin to kind of pile up towards the end of the year.
The big stories this week for the owners' meetings is the overtime rule. Do you have a strong opinion on where it sits or where it should be?
Yeah, we were introduced to the proposals yesterday. I think it's interesting what Tennessee has proposed with score a touchdown, 2-point conversion, and win the game. I'm not so sure, having looked back at this last year, if that's the direction the league wants to go, from the standpoint of just ending the game there. I am a believer, too. I think both teams should possess the football in overtime. I think it's still going to be an ongoing discussion whether we vote yay or nay in the next couple of days. Overtime is always going to be a hot topic around this time.
A vote like that, do you organizationally want to be in line and debate it internally?
Yeah, from an organizational standpoint, you want to be on the same page, obviously, have those conversations and make sure that we all understand what it means and what it could mean when you're in that situation during the regular season or the postseason.
With Brandon Scherf, guard isn't always a position teams look to invest a lot in. Why did you guys feel it was important to get him?
I mean, look at his track record. Look at his production. The amount of Pro Bowls he's been to, the leader he is on and off the football field, the win-loss rate when he's playing, when he's healthy. I mean, there's a lot of positives around Brandon Scherf that that really drew us to him. And then, obviously his familiarity with Phil Rauscher, my offensive line coach. They worked together in Washington. But he's a pro's pro, and we're excited to get him.
And to go back to Carson Wentz for a second, I know you didn't have him the last year, but what do you think is the key for him to be successful? What does he need to do in this league, or what does Washington need to do to help him?
Well, I mean, just be Carson. Just come in there and lead like he knows how to lead. Get everybody involved on offense. Get the defensive guys involved. And just be him. He doesn't have to do anything other than that, really, and they're going to be okay.
He throws him a tight end almost as much as any quarterback in the league. Was that a choice that you guys made, or was that something that you saw he'd like to do, so you tried to give him those pieces?
I think if you look at any successful quarterback in the league right now, tight end is probably top of the list for a quarterback. And so, we had a couple good tight ends in Philly, and we just felt like we could scheme up a little bit with the tight end quarterback relationship on the field, and it seems to work, because that one position, everything's kind of right over the ball, right? I mean, right in front of the quarterback for you. And that's, obviously you got to have, I think you also have to have a dynamic receiver as well, but that tight end position becomes, I think, the quarterback's best friend, and Carson really drew to that. Yeah.
When you were weighing the decision to franchise tag Cam Robinson, how much did you weigh, that experienced left tackle as opposed to maybe, going into the draft and thinking you could get one of those guys?
Experience, and a guy that we know in Jacksonville. Good relationship with the quarterback. It's hard to find really, really good left tackles in this league. And we feel like Cam is one of those good tackles, and we're just fortunate to be able to, franchise him, keep him here, hopefully work out a long-term deal with him so he's around more than just a year. But keeping that and knowing his experience and knowing his expertise really made it easy for us to keep him around.
You learned most about yourself as a head coach being out of the league for a year. What have you learned most about yourself being outside of the league for a year that you've kind of taken into Jacksonville away from being in Philly?
I think you see the game, at that 30,000 foot perspective sometimes when you're away from it. You get to look at a lot of football, a lot of in-game decisions for a decision maker, and really, I think have a bigger picture mentality a little bit about your organization, about your coaching staff, about your players. Excuse me. That when you're in it for so many years, you tend to get a little tighter, and so this has kind of opened things up for me to be a little bit more of who I am, and the experiences I learned in Philly, be able to bring that to Jacksonville.
You have a lot of new staff members, obviously from Philly. Why was it important to get those different voices in there heading into a different?
Well, that was big for me. Again, it goes back to, I think, your earlier question, like being able to surround myself with guys that I haven't worked with before and get new perspectives, new ideas, but also guys that think a lot like I do. And so it was important for me that I did that and really, obviously good teachers, good communicators, but have new ideas, have fresh ideas with a little different perspective.
Watch Trevor more, in the work that you're doing. How does he fit what you inherently like to do offensively?
Number one, he's athletic. Number two, he throws the ball extremely well. He fits the RPO scheme on offense. Excuse me. He can fit the play action pass. Obviously, you got to have the ability to run the football, and I really feel like with James Robinson, Travis Etienne, we got guys there that can really, and help us in the run game. The addition of Brandon Scherf, getting Tyler Shatley back, Cam Robinson, kind of solidifying that offensive line a little bit, keeping those pieces around Trevor, and now going into year two for him. Really, I think we're going to see some really good growth as we begin, our off-season program in a couple of weeks to really start shaping our offense around him, right, and what he can do. And I really believe it's the play action game, the quarterback movement game. He throws the ball extremely well outside the pocket on the run, and those are things that we can try to develop.
In watching him more closely lately, that you didn't realize he could do, or anything, have you learned anything about him and watching him more closely?
He obviously he throws the ball well on the run. That was one thing. Number two, he throws the deep ball really well. And when I say the deep ball, particularly the seam throws, between the number and the hash. And that was something that kind of popped out on film as we were watching him and studying him, this off season. So those are all things that we could try to use, as we move forward in developing our scheme offensively. Will I?
Like to do?
I will have one, yes. I will. Yeah, I just got to figure out once we get more into training camp, but I'll start formulating my own opinions in the off season with the guys we have, but I won't really put that together until later in training camp.
Speaking of training camp, your camp was a lot different in 16 than it was in 19 and 20. Are you going to go back to the way it was when you started, or do you think the league is evolving and you want to have it as you finish it?
I would love to go back and duplicate 17 training camp if I could. But things have changed, rules have changed, the amount of time on the field has changed, even in the year that I was out, right? So, but at the same time, we got the Hall of Fame game this year, plus 3 preseason games, so I have to organize training camp a little bit differently. And I also look at, the health of the football team coming out of training camp, right? And so how we practice and how we build towards the regular season. So the goal is to be in the best physical condition that you can be heading into September, into that regular season. It does. Yeah. I'll still have a couple of live days, in camp. I think it's important to do that, to be able to hit that way. As you guys know, I don't do it the whole day. I just pick a couple periods in that day to go live.
About the left side of the line, narratives get formed about certain players. What have you seen from Jawan Taylor, and how confident are you that he can keep that spot and have a big year for you guys?
Yeah, I think he's another big reason why, you keep that offensive line, intact, and you got him, you got Cam, and then you have Walker Little, who is another guy that's going to be able to compete at that tackle spot and or be able to play both. So, as I said earlier, it's hard to find offensive linemen in this league, and when you have a couple guys on your roster like we do, you try to keep them, and you try to keep them here. And I think it's going to be a really good battle, I think, with Jawan, with Walker, at that position. And, but I love everything that Jawan has done. There's flashes, there's moments, and we just got to get more out of the entire group, right? Not just one player, but get more out of all those guys to be able to perform at a higher level.
You have a center in Brandon Linder who's very different than Jason Kelsey, but then Tyler Shatley has comparable, playing skills. How do you weigh that when you look at the center position?
Well, obviously there's not many like Jason Kelsey, and love that guy. Everything he does, he's smart, he's intelligent, great athlete. Again, we take the guys that we have, we use their strengths, and then we formulate a plan. And we start putting our run game together, our protection schemes together. One thing about the center position in Brandon and Tyler's, they're smart guys, and they can make all the decisions and all the calls, and that's where it starts. And it takes a lot of pressure off your second-year quarterback to be able to handle all that communication. But it's a key component to what we do, and it really starts from the center out.
Obviously came up in the Eagles system. How much do you think it helped him mature as a coach, getting kind of away from Philly, going to Indy before coming back to you?
Oh, I think it's everything. He started out in Chip Kelly's system, and then my system, and then Frank's system in Indy, and now back with me. And so he's been able to see things even develop and formulate his own plan. And that's one of the things that I've been able to do as he's my coordinator now, is really allow him the freedom to kind of tweak the offense how he sees. I mean, he's been looking at it for 7, 8 years, 9 years now. So let him take it and kind of run with it, and then he and I will get together and really formulate the plan as we go. But I think that's valuable experience, being around 3 different systems, and then of course all his college background, and bringing that into his job now.
Some of you guys haven't talked a lot of football yet. Have you learned anything about Trevor over the last month or 2 that you didn't know about him?
I was obviously told a lot of things about him, but then when you finally get to meet him, everything is true, right? He's a great communicator. He's a great leader. He wants to win. He's a good athlete. Everything you see on tape, and then everything that people tell in the building that tell me about him, and when you meet him, it's legit. I mean, it's who he is. He's a humble guy, and that's what you want, right, from your quarterback. Somebody that's kind of a sponge, that wants to learn, that wants to grow, wants to win, wants to put the team first, and those are all great qualities in Trevor.
One thing you looked at and said, "Hey, I'm excited to help him grow in this area."
I think it's a little bit of everything with him. His athleticism, the way he runs. He came from an offensive system at Clemson where it was a little bit of an RPO game, some play action pass, even some design quarterback runs, so those are all things that he has in his toolbox. I think that we can help kind of bring it all together and continue to coach him, continue to work on the fundamentals of playing the quarterback position, and really help our team win.
An update on James Robinson and Travis Etienne, and then when those guys are healthy, how do you see them working together?
Yeah, I mean, both of them are doing extremely well. Travis will be able to work a little bit this offseason with us, get into some more, football drill work. James will be a little more into training camp before we get him. But it's a really good kind of a 1-2 combination. There's not a lot of tape on Travis, right? But just listening to the guy like Bernie Parmalee, my running back coach, just listening to him talk about Travis and some of the things that they did with him, last year in camp, I think are some things that we see in him as an offensive staff. James is a guy that can first, second, or third down. He's explosive. He's a bigger back. Had a really good season last year. So I think it's a really good 1-2 combination when healthy.
That if James isn't ready to go, the Travis could be that big guy?
I do, and I think we also got some younger guys that are going to compete this offseason, for those, if it's not James, for that second or third role on our roster. And so I'm excited for those guys to work this spring.
You see Travis truly at that running back spot, or do you see him going a little bit more at receiver?
We'll see.
Jeffrey, since you've been here?
I haven't seen him yet, no.
Conversed with him since
Jeffrey?
No,
I haven't.
What do you like about Evan Ingram when you guys were looking at free agents this offseason?
I liked Evan coming out of college when we did him, and I just love his athleticism, his route running. He's a tough guy. He's a willing participant to block. But he really complements that tight end room. He complements Dan Arnold, and Manhurts and Luke and those guys. It really complements that room, makes that room better. I feel that's one of the stronger positions on our team right now, and he really adds some value there.
You mentioned liking your defensive front several times. What is it that you like about that group?
Say that one more time.
Defensive front. You mentioned that being a strength. You thought, what is it you like specifically about that front?
I just like the way they played. I mean, look at Josh Allen and Chase on last year, how they were coming off the edge. Malcolm Brown in the middle, Smoot down there. I mean, these guys, Miles Jack at linebacker. I mean, these guys really were able to solidify and kind of, nullify the run game, but at the same time they could rush the passer. And it's just something that showed up on tape every week, even though, it wasn't the outcome that they were hoping for. This group really kept them in football games last year, and that's a starting point for you, and really putting more pieces there that can really help even further enhance what is already a good position group.
It seems like you're
Last one out here.
it seems like you're really involved with roster construction in Jacksonville. What did you kind of learn from working with Howie and Philly about how to construct a roster?
Well, I just think that, my relationship with Howie and the communication process that we had, listening to his ideas, listening to my ideas, even listening to my assistant coaches and their ideas, and really kind of formulating opinions that way on how to put a roster together. And by no means do I want to play general manager at all. I want to be coach, and I want to coach the guys. But at the same time, you want to have a say in the guys you're coaching, right? And I just feel like the relationship that Trent and I have, he really leans heavily on the coaching staff and our opinions, because at the end of the day, like I said, we're the ones that coach these players, and we want to be able to have, the guys we want on the field to coach.
What do you think about Carson Beck?
We'll see him this year. No, we'll see him this year. I'm excited for him. It'll be a good opportunity. I know he'll do a good job there. All right, thanks, guys.